The government's long-awaited response to the pension scams consultation came out recently. It plans to press ahead with a ban on cold calls about pensions. With strong support from the industry for the original proposals, it could hardly do otherwise. A careful reading of the response, however, shows why it took so long to appear. It seems the government has realised that banning cold calls is not such a good idea after all. I have to agree. Of course it's abhorrent that anyone should get away with conning people out of their savings. But a knee-jerk reaction to pass legislation simply banning undesirable behaviour is unlikely to work. Prohibition in America didn't stop people drinking. Criminals won't be deterred by legislation making their activity illegal unless and until the likelihood of being caught and convicted is significant and the penalty is severe enough to render their activity uneconomic. They often treat fines as part of the cost of doing business. How many reports and how much incontrovertible evidence will it take to convict a scammer? Consider the practicalities. You get a call and you see it's from number withheld, often the case with non-personal calls, so you can't even get to first base. But if you can note the number, are you going to record the call? If you have the means at hand to do so, the law says you have to tell the caller first. The few who cross these first hurdles need to find out who wants to know and how to tell them. Well, it's the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, that will be responsible for enforcing the proposed ban. Like other enforcement agencies, such as the Serious Fraud Office, from the public's point of view, they have a less than encouraging track record in securing convictions. And the ICO can't touch scammers located overseas. The ICO will need to prove not just that a single illegal call was made, but that a concerted effort was made from within the UK to reach thousands of potential victims and that the calls were not exempted by any of the inevitable categories, such as having had some dealing with the firm in the past. A clear pattern of offences will have to be demonstrated. Furthermore, only pensions are covered by the proposed ban. Other savings and investments are still fair game. So a scammer has only to take care not to mention the word pension. Publicising the ban might stiffen consumer resistance, but cold calling will carry on. And meanwhile, as anecdotal evidence of successful scams continues to build without convictions, the law will fall into disrepute. The last thing we need is another version of the 1991 Dangerous Dogs Act. There's no value in legislation that's unenforceable or not enforced. Think back to the introduction of stakeholder pensions. Employers had merely to designate a scheme. How many were prosecuted for failing to take that simple step? One, who shopped himself. There are better ways to tackle pension liberation than making a law that bans cold calls and thinking job done. For example, when a pension scheme member asks to transfer to an occupational pension scheme, they could be required to prove they're employed by an active employer and one who actually sponsors the receiving scheme. At present, neither of those connections is necessary. If pension scheme administrators could check that money is not being transferred into a fraudulent scheme by verifying the connections between the member, their new employer, and the scheme, that would be a more effective way of safeguarding the public from scams. This is where we need the government to act. Scheme administrators are the gatekeepers. They need more support to protect their members. Simply banning cold calls about pensions won't stop the scammers. The government is barking up the wrong tree. The real key to success is to make it harder for scammers to succeed. I think the government knows that.